I am so happy to say that the wait is over, that the longest off season of all time is over, and that we can finally start talking about real football games with real consequences, with real opponents, with the starters, everything in between, and all that. Because this is the start of it, right? Week 1 already started last night. Now we're going to talk about the Browns starting off week 1 for 15 on CBS versus the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to be a national game for the Cleveland Browns for all intents and purposes. So huge game coming up. And boy, I have been waiting for a long time to do this preview. So I'm kind of just savoring it and eating it in right now. But we're going to talk about the Browns matchup with the Chiefs. How can the Browns beat the Kansas City Chiefs? What problems do the Kansas City Chiefs present against the Cleveland Browns? All that and more. But before I get into that, I want to make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload a ton of videos are coming out. But more importantly, you want to be subscribed and notified so you don't miss out on the watch party. And if you don't want to watch the watch party, you can't make the watch party, come back around 30 minutes after the game for the post-game show. So 2 streams, 1 day, watch party, live post-game show. 1 day, 2 live streams. That's going to be what it's like on every game day for the Cleveland Browns going forward, at least most game days for the Cleveland Browns going forward. So if that sounds like fun to you and that sounds like something you don't want to miss, be subscribed and be notified so you don't miss a single notification, a single live stream, a single video, because they're all going to be coming, and they're going to be coming quite often. But also, I have to thank the people who help make these streams possible, who help make the extra content possible. And that is my Patreon.com dog check tier members. And I'm going to start with Michael Mateague, Michael Morales, Mark Kahn, Max Haymaker, Drake, Nick Merrick, Mike Labra, Wesson Megan, DA, and Jay. Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Easley Bash, Joe Hart, Gabriel Wilson, Fred Pratt III, David Valtiara, Relentless Buck, Chunt, Rex Kaufman, Kevin Johnston, Cleveland Cart, Matt H, Sign Sheets, Gemini, Lewin Freeman, Fight Dirty 74, Yo-Yo, Matt Lloyd, Paul Wilcox, Hundo Magnifico, Kyle Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, Deveroff, J Guy 101, Musty Taco, Joe Bobby, Brad Cowboy, Dylan W, James McGinley, Arendal, Chad Gimme, David Maldonado, Dylan Hill, Josh Bendor, Jaleel Salim Jr., Mark M, Stuart Moore, Cleveland BCI, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, Andrew Hirsch, Curtis Bear, Batman, Barack Kumar, John Albert, Beerman069, Masayua, Buzzer Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Philip Wilcox, Marie Rivert, Sean Barron, Gagos Pisano, Corporal Nick Lopez, Dom Gazzola, Nick Nasty, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Christian, Dave Strong, Michael Stone, Billy Moose Gentry, Austin Z, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, Dog Pound Kai, Lydia, Jesus Serrano, Alexander Davis, Chris Phones, Picktown Browns backer, Max Nilikenko, Mark Khan, Max Aldojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much for the support. It means a ton to me. Now, let's talk about week 1, the Browns versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, so this game has a bevy of things to watch on both sides of the ball, so I'm just going to try to split this up, defense and offense. I think the first side of the ball for the Cleveland Browns, I'm going to talk about matchup-wise, is this Cleveland Browns defense. Now, since it's the beginning of the year, I don't have the bevy of numbers and charts that I would normally throw at you in my previews. So we're going to have to do this a little bit more off the cuff, more so than what a normal preview video would be. Normally, this would be chock full of charts, stats, and everything else, but we don't have any of that yet because the season just hasn't started. Now, that being said, one of the biggest attack points, I think, for this Cleveland Browns team is going to be the defensive line versus this new offensive line that the Kansas City Chiefs have. Now, if you're not familiar with the Kansas City Chiefs or haven't been following the Kansas City Chiefs, they have a completely new offensive line. They traded for Orlando Brown Jr. on the left side. Joe Thuney is out there at left guard, and then they drafted Creed Humphreys, and they have 2 other Not technically rookies, but rookies just because they opted out last year and now they're back in this year. So 3 guys on the right side of the offensive line with no prior NFL experience. Joe Thuney, tons of prior NFL experience. And then Orlando Brown, who they got from the Baltimore Ravens. And Orlando Brown is who I kind of want to focus on right now because he was supposed to be kind of the sure thing, and the other guys are supposed to be, other than Joe Thuney, the other 3 guys were supposed to be kind of a mystery. Well, if you have watched a little bit of the preseason and look at how PFF has graded the offensive line throughout the preseason, it seems like those 3 guys are going to be fine. Joe Thuney is going to be fine. But Orlando Brown was a bit of a mystery in the preseason. Now, again, limited sample size. We're talking about literally 45 snaps in the preseason. So this is not any way me saying that Orlando Brown's going to be trash. But there is some interesting things to look at when you look at his preseason performance that might be a little bit concerning if you were Andy Reid. It might be something encouraging that you want to attack if you're Joe Woods. One, Orlando Brown in his 3 preseason games, 45 snaps, gave up 3 pressures and had a 50.83 Pro Football Focus grade. The rest of the offensive line only gave up 1 pressure combined. I'm talking about all 4 of them in all 3 preseason games combined. 1 pressure. Orlando Brown, 3 in 45 snaps now, but 3 pressures to 1 pressure, and then 1 offensive lineman to 4 offensive linemen. So I do think that's a little significant. And the rest of the offensive line was averaging, a 75.5 grade on Pro Football Focus. Again, Orlando Brown at 50.83. Now, some of this might be him getting used to a new system, albeit the other guys are rookies, and, so is Joe Thuney. So I don't know how much of an excuse that really is for Orlando Brown. I think one of the things about Orlando Brown that maybe in hindsight made the Ravens feel like they could trade him is I think the Ravens felt like they were masking a lot of his weaknesses by the way that they play offense. And if you watch the Ravens, and if you're here and you're a Browns fan, you've clearly watched the Ravens before, you would know the Ravens always have a tight end on the line of scrimmage. They always have a chip. They always have help for their offensive line down there. But that's not at all how the Kansas City Chiefs play football, right? The Kansas City Chiefs will leave no help out there most of the time, and then maybe they'll throw a chip with the slot wide receiver. But they're very rarely going to keep a tight end back. They're very rarely going to keep a running back back. They want as many of those pieces out there. Now, part of the reason the Chiefs get away with this is because nobody will dare to blitz the Chiefs, and that's a pretty smart thing to not do to them because, again, Patrick Mahomes can escape, has insane throwing ability, and same as Tyreek Hill is fast and also great chemistry with Travis Kelce. So not a great thing to do to blitz them. But when you're talking about Orlando Brown and leaving him on an island, I do think that's something that can lead to a lot of pressures just because Orlando Brown, his scouting report coming out of college, and the reason he fell to the second round was that he had slow feet. He was a big guy, but slow feet. And I think they helped them a lot in Baltimore with how they play and how they get chips and how they kind of discourage teams from going and getting that outside rush or those speed rushes. It'd be interesting to see what Kansas City does to remedy that, or if Orlando Brown just picks his feet up and just starts, chopping them a little bit faster in the regular season. But that's something to watch. He has had a below average preseason. And again, if you're talking about somebody with slow feet on the island with Myles Garrett, I'll take Myles Garrett on that bet every time. So that's going to be something to watch on how the Browns are going to try to get pressure versus the Chiefs. Another way that the Browns are going to try to get pressure versus the Chiefs is straight up confusion. Now, it's going to be confusion to an extent because I don't think they're going to blitz more than 5 people, no matter what the look is, but they're going to put confusion out there. Why? Because, again, they have 3 new starters on the right side of that offensive line. They might not be bad players, but they are inexperienced players. And with inexperienced players, you can do some things to kind of confuse them. Part of what you can do to confuse them is confuse them on what their assignment is and make them have to over communicate or test that communication that they have. So expect these blitz packages, for lack of better word, to be real cute. You're going to see 8 guys on the line of scrimmage and then a bunch of people drop back. You're going to see some unique blitz packages. You're going to see Myles Garrett drop back in coverage. I promise you that. You're going to see him drop back in coverage more than like twice. You might see the same thing with Jadeveon Clowney. They're going to try to keep the offensive line line guessing, especially on the right side, on who's coming and who's going where. Now, the Browns can do this because you can put Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney outside, and they can go outside, inside real quick. You can put Malik McDowell on the line and then push him out. There's a lot of versatility you could do with this defensive line. Same thing with Malik Jackson, too. But there's a lot of versatility with this defensive line. JOK, you could send him as a blitzer. Sione Takitaki, you could send him as a blitzer. So you can do a lot of things with multiple packages and put people all over the field and have them try to guess who's coming and who's going. And it's going to be real stressful for that line. So I think confusion is going to be how the Browns are going to try to get pressure here. You're going to see UFO packages. You're going to see misdirections. You're going to see delayed blitzes. It's going to get real cute. Now, whether that's going to work or not, I don't know, but it is worth a try, right? It's better than just playing them straight up. But it's probably going to be real cute out there week one, just because they're trying to confuse a young offensive line for the Kansas City Chiefs, especially on that right side. But again, no matter how complex these blitzes are, there probably should never be more than 5 guys blitzing on a given play, because you don't want to do that to the Kansas City Chiefs. It's just not something that's ever worked out. You can point to the Super Bowl and say, well, it worked out for Tampa Bay. And yeah, it kind of did, because they did get pressure, but I don't think it was from blitzing most of the time. I think it was just from the front 7, just getting pressure on what was a mediocre offensive line at that point. So yeah, if the offensive line is bad enough, yeah, you can blitz all you want, but I don't expect the offensive line to be that bad that you can just do that. Now, the secondary versus the offense of the Kansas City Chiefs is going to be something to watch, just because it was a huge factor in the Browns not getting off the field in that final drive versus the Kansas City Chiefs. But I do want to say this as a disclaimer. If the Browns secondary looks terrible on Sunday, this is not a license to panic or to fire Joe Woods. Like, we are not at that point. If they look bad versus the best offense in football, I'm willing to write that off as this is early in the year and Kansas City was a little bit too much of a test early on. And I think on some level it should be expected. I don't know if people are thinking that this game's going to be under 20, but if it's under 20, it's because Kansas City's playing real methodical or playing real slow, and the same thing's happening with the Browns, and the score gets down that way. I don't expect this defense to have a dominating performance against the Kansas City Chiefs. I will be grateful to be wrong about that, but I just don't expect it. I don't think it's fair to expect it. This is their first time out there. Now, that being said, if you weren't happy with the secondary's performance last year versus the Kansas City Chiefs, I have excellent news for you. There are a lot of players, difference makers, who will be in this game more than likely, knock on wood, that weren't there last year, right? And I'm just going to name them. Denzel Ward will be playing. He didn't play last year. John Johnson will be playing for the Browns. He didn't play for the Browns last year. Grant Delpit will play. He didn't play last year. Greedy Williams will play. He didn't play last year. Greg Newsome was in Northwestern last year. He will play for the Cleveland Browns this year. Troy Hill was in LA last year. He will be on the Cleveland Browns. These are all massive contributors who did not play in last year's game, who will be in this year's game. So that is a massive upgrade in personnel when you go from, Terrence Mitchell as your number one corner to having Denzel Ward, having Greg Newsome, having Grant Delpit, having John Johnson III, having Troy Hill. That's going to make a massive difference. Now, that being said, we have not seen much out of, we actually just haven't seen this unit at all on the field, to be honest with you. So there are some question marks, right? Like communication. I'm expecting that to look a little rough in week one, to be honest with you, because they just haven't had enough snaps to practice it. Tackling might be a little rough in week one. They might give up a couple of big plays because of those two things. Like, I don't expect this to be the crispest that the defense looks in week one. I think there's going to be some growing pains early on for this defense, but talent-wise, it's a massive upgrade, and that might make a difference when you're talking about getting a play or two, getting a extra stop or two. Those are where that's going to make the difference. It's not going to be crisp. It's not going to be clean. It's not going to look like the 85 Bears, but you might have enough talent to get yourself off the field more often than you were able to last year. The X factor, I think, in this whole game defensively is JOK. he could be somebody who starts, plays a huge role, and becomes a big phenomenon by the end of this game because of how well he played. Or he could have a really disappointing start, not play that much. I don't know what to expect out of him, but I do think that if he does, or if there is anybody who can change the game for the Browns defense or change the status quo a little bit, it's going to be JOK, just because we know that every position group is going to have their hands full with the Kansas City Chiefs. But with a linebacker, I think there's extra incentive and an extra kind of benefit to them having a good game, just because if you can slow down Travis Kelce, that stops a lot of their first down production. If you can shut down some of these screens and underneath throws that they get, that's really what fuels this Kansas City offense. So if you get some really solid linebacking play, that's going to be one of the biggest keys to beating the Chiefs, because then you can push them back behind the sticks and force them into situations, or put yourself in a situation to be more successful. And what I mean by that is, if you put Kansas City behind the sticks, then you can be in nickel as your base. Then you can be in dime more often. You can throw more DBs out there, be lighter, be more athletic, and not worry about the inside run killing you, because the inside run has killed the Cleveland Browns for a couple of years now, right? The inability to stop it. I'm not confident that's changed, because I haven't been impressed with what the solution has been so far. That being the case, I see that the Kansas City Chiefs getting behind the sticks, it's probably going to come from a linebacker and Myles Garrett. Those are going to be the two most important players in this game. And if I have to choose a linebacker that's going to make that kind of impact, I'm going to go with JOK, just because I've been very impressed with what I've seen of him in camp and in the preseason. But that's really what it's going to take. But honestly, for the defense, it's going to be what it takes, and that's going to be most of what it takes for this team, right? Points are going to be scored. That's not in question. But what's in question is, can Myles Garrett get multiple sacks? Can Clowney get multiple TFLs? I don't expect interceptions or a ton of turnovers, but can you get off the field on third down? Can you force more than a couple of punts? Can you force some field goals if they get down into the red zone? And can you get the Kansas City Chiefs on occasion behind the sticks to slow them down? Because putting the Chiefs behind the sticks allows you to sit in dime, allows you to sit in nickel packages, have multiple safeties over the top versus their four vertical attack, and that is the best way to slow down the Kansas City Chiefs. The more you can get in position to have lighter personnel packages versus the Kansas City Chiefs, the better position you're in as a defense. Now, let's briefly talk about the offense. Now, the offense isn't going to get as long as a talk here, because I don't think it's as complicated or needs the same amount of discussion as the defense, because there's so many new moving parts there for the Cleveland Browns, and the Kansas City Chiefs are obviously an awesome offense. So this is a little bit less complicated. The biggest thing for the Cleveland Browns is Chris Jones. He's going to present a new problem for them because he's playing defensive end. And Jedrick Wills, I'm a little worried about him there, just because he struggled against some of the stronger veteran ends last year, even in pass protection where he was good. They have Tyrann Mathieu and the same crew of secondary guys coming back. For the Browns, the biggest difference is going to be having Odell Beckham Jr. in a healthy offensive line. I think that got forgotten when we talk about the Chiefs game in hindsight, that the offensive line was not healthy when they played last time. So those two are going to make a big difference. Odell, just because at the very least he's going to eat up the attention of Charvarius Ward, and then also Tyrann Mathieu most of the time, and that's going to free up Jarvis Landry, free up Donovan Peoples-Jones to be open more often. And also, I think since they moved Jones to the edge, I think that will free up some of the run game, especially on the inside. Last year, it was real tough for the Browns to move the ball in the run game. I don't expect that to go away just because they moved Chris Jones to the edge, but I do think it might be a little easier, because now instead of having Wyatt Teller be eaten up by a Chris Jones, you can have Wyatt Teller have a little bit of an easier assignment and kind of run behind him, because that is your best guard at this point. Same thing with Joe Bitonio. So yeah, you might have a little bit more flexibility in the run game. I would expect the Browns to go with the run game early just to test that. Ultimately, for me, we could talk about the offense all you want. And I know the national people are going to make Baker Mayfield, can he keep up with Patrick Mahomes, a headline. I really don't think that's intriguing. I think the Browns offense, whether it's Baker Mayfield or the run game, they're more than capable of keeping up with points with the Kansas City Chiefs, especially with getting Odell Beckham Jr. back and having a healthy offensive line. I'm confident in their ability to put up points versus the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think that's the biggest question. I think the biggest question is this defense in the first game that pretty much an entire new unit's going to be together, are they ready to get a handful of stops versus the Kansas City Chiefs? And I know a handful of stops don't sound like that much, but versus the Chiefs, it's a ton, right? I'm talking about maybe 2 to 3 field goals and maybe 2 or 3 punts. I'm not expecting the 85 Bears for the Cleveland Browns, but can you get those handful of stops to help swing the direction, the tide of momentum for your offense? That is going to be the biggest question. It is a tall task for this defense, but when you have Myles Garrett, when you have a Denzel Ward, and when you're healthy and you've invested as much into this defense, it's something that I feel like they're capable of. Now, I could be proven wrong on this on Sunday. This could be a complete disaster, but I think they're capable of it, and I think that's how the Browns can win this game, is by forcing the Chiefs behind the sticks and getting those 5 stops. They get those 5 stops, I think they can win the game. But let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I want to know all of your thoughts about this Week 1 matchup. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.